Valve. You may have heard of them. Aside of creating the biggest gaming platform to this day that Epic Game Store will never manage to replicate, they also, now get ready for this because you won't believe it, they also made games. Now, this is quite a statement, but it's true. Sure, Valve still makes games from time to time. Sometimes they redefine a whole genre of gaming, sometimes they release Artifact. Hey, at least the Twitch category is more interesting than whatever the game is. But before that, before Steam became the money pool that it is, Valve made games. You want sci-fi takeover action-adventure? Bam! Half-Life series. You want a comedic puzzle game with funny robots and arguably one of the most kick-ass soundtracks in gaming? Bam! Portal. You want a co-op horde game that's actually fun? Bam! Left 4 Dead.
Mister, I don't think I like your attitude.
Kiss my ass.
Sure, these games on their own are about fantastical concepts, but most games that Valve produced had a realistic design philosophy. Every single human model looked like a real-life person, and most of the design elements were crafted to be easily replicated in our world. But what if Valve decided to go a different route? What if Valve decided to release a game that felt akin to a comedic parody comic book? A game set in a world where two immortal rich men spend billions of dollars fighting over a petty squabble. An unrealistic concept, I know, but still. And Valve decided to make that creative risk, and thus making Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 has quite a history, not only just through the game itself, but through the influence it brought to the online world. Source Filmmaker was one of the few available tools for animators to create their own 3D animations, and the most popular models to use for those animations were the TF2 Mercenaries, mostly due to how simplistic the models were to work with. Through the late 2000s to our current timeline, we see the Team Fortress 2 Mercenaries on the YouTube recommendations, in the profiles of internet users and But what makes these TF2 characters so unique? How did these 9 mercenaries over a span of a decade manage to have such recognizable designs, voices, and personalities that influence people to this day? To not talk about every single merc in detail, I decided to pick 3 of my most favorite ones and tell you exactly why I like them. When you design a tank character, you usually want them to look big, slow, but also strong, so it would make sense for Heavy from Team Fortress 2 to have a body structure akin to a heavy lifter, setting him apart from his peers who are much shorter and have less body mass. When you take his body and roll the tank into consideration, it's easy to see how they went with the route of giving him a USSR origin due to their natural correlation with bears, who, dare I say, I would also pick were to be alone in the woods. But the defining characteristic in Heavy, despite being a stereotypical strong, angry Russian man with a big minigun, he is surprisingly very articulate, having PhD in Russian literature, which is partially reflected in his own trailer when he laments on his intelligence.
Some people think they can outsmart me. Maybe. I've yet to meet one that can outsmart Bullet.
And with that we can see that by having a stereotype and actually getting a contradiction to that stereotype, Valve actually made a much more interesting character. My second favorite mercenary from the Team Fortress franchise is Medic. Believe it or not, I might have made a small video about him. Got a few views, I still get comments on it, but you know, a medic is usually considered to be a good-natured individual on the battlefield. Field medics are usually valid on both sides of the conflict, due to their jobs involving saving people rather than hurting them. But that applies only for medics who are drafted to combat. The Team Fortress 2 medic is a mercenary, which means he went to the battlefield willingly. The TF2 medic is arguably the most consciously evil mercenary out of the group, due to him viewing the blue-red conflict more as an opportunity to fulfill his evil vices. At least a few crimes that Medic has committed during the events of TF2 we have: practicing without a license, kidnapping, torture, unethical experimentation, making deals with the devil, and much more. On the other hand, he's really good at his job, being capable of restoring lost limbs, granting actual invincibility, and bringing the deceased back from the dead. And he has redeemable qualities. He loves animals, especially doves, and he has a healthy relationship with most of the mercs. But still, I'd recommend you to be on your toes when he's committed to his work.
Let's go practice medicine.
I think it's really interesting how by subverting the expectation behind the traditional concept of medic on a battlefield, that being a good-natured individual, you can create a much more interesting character. Then again, despite medic being really evil, he has qualities that make him likable. He's a team player, despite partially betraying his crew for his own safety in the comics, but he makes up for it when rescuing Sniper, and generally enjoys the company of his colleagues, especially Heavy, who are... But despite Medic and Heavy being arguably the classic duo of TF2 as the most recognizable faces of the franchise, my last pick is my personal favorite.
Gentlemen?
How do you make a backstabbing Frenchman who steals the identities of others and is constantly throwing insults left and right about your mother into a likable character? Well, Team Fortress 2 found an answer. You just make him the only gentleman in the group. Despite Spy being one of the most sneakiest and cunning enemies to deal with, acting like a rat on the battlefield, he's not just one of the most distinguished characters in the series, wearing a suit and knowing proper manners, but also is arguably the most empathetic mercenary on the team. When the entire team is diagnosed with tumors that will kill them in 3 days, he's the first one to help them make a bucket list of their last wishes, and even assisted Scout to create a decent romantic date with Miss Pauling. Moreover, on Scout's deathbed, he personally made sure that his final moments were peaceful by portraying himself as a father Scout wishes he had. But despite being an overall compassionate chap, you should always take a closer look behind you.
Right behind you.
Despite Valve not taking such a good care of the Team Fortress 2 property, as well as not really focusing on their other games, the historical impact that they made with their characters is still recognized and remembered by the internet to this day. Not a lot of games have this kind of legacy left behind, and to me it's really a good example of how a good character design and character philosophy can carry the franchise in the hearts of people for years to come. Or you know, also release new updates more frequently, and don't forget about your fan base. Yeah, that's also a good solution for people remembering your game. Just don't steal your employees' breast milk while doing that, please. I know it's a hard thing to do for some people, but you know, it's manageable. It's manageable.